anything, excuse me, remove anything that might be distracting, and close down all your tabs in your browsers in order to ensure that you get full audio and full time there, all right? And thirdly, as I like to say, get in state for the next, I don't know, about 45 minutes to an hour or so. What if this time together was going to be the thing that's going to help elevate your business and give you some tactics and tools that are really going to blow open some ROI for you? If that were the case and you were really honestly sure about that next few minutes, you're going, what kind of state would you be in, right? Would you be sitting? Would you be standing? How would you be feeling? Kind of get into that place and be ready to go. So if that is you and you've gotten your GOTS, or you've getting your GOTS, or however you want to say that, if you got your tools, you got rid of anything that's going to distract you, and you are in state and you are ready to go, just type in the box something like good to go, ready to go, hoorah, whatever you want there, giving me a little bit of a heads up, and then I will make sure that we kind of get started. Good to go, brother Noah says. Let's go, Karen says. Let's roll, booyah, good to go. Awesome, looks like we are ready to go. So here is the deal. When I do these kind of things, they're going to be kind of very workshop style-y. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be covering some content, and then at the end of a piece of content I'm going to take some Q&As, and then we're going to get into the next bit of content, and I'm going to take some Q&As, and we're kind of going to go back and forth, kind of like a race car driving on a racetrack, where you slow down during the turns just to make sure everything kind of still on track, and then you speed up and you get back into the content. So just letting you know also, this is not your typical selling webinar. Obviously you paid to be here, so it's going to be maybe a little bit different than what you're used to. I really have nothing for sale. Really, I'm just going to kind of teach you what you've paid to be taught here. And I do want to let you know that I will let some of you, well, actually everybody on here, I will let you know about a special deal that I am willing to offer for my intensive that's coming up in the next couple of months if you're wanting to take it. If it happens to kind of fit your bill, just for being here, I do like to reward people. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, but I'll let you know before I do. But my really intentions here are to give you the goods, to give you all killer, no filler. I don't want to fill this up with fluff. So here's the deal. I'm not going to really drag this out any longer than it needs to go, just for the sake of you feeling like, hey, I've been there for an hour and a half, or anything like that. I'm going to do my best to give you the goods. I'm going to give you what I know. We're going to take some questions throughout, and then again take some questions at the end. And then I'm going to trust that you're going to go and you're going to deploy this in your business. So I hope that's cool. And I just want to ask your permission on a few things. First and foremost, as you can already tell if you haven't noticed, I do like to interact a lot, and I do like to ask a lot of questions. This is kind of not so much for me or because I think it's a good idea or anything like that, but I do really want to make sure I'm hitting the points that needed to be hit. I want to tailor what I say to make sure that you get the most of our time and experience together, and the best way I can do that is to make sure we have a little bit of a two-way dialogue rather than just me sitting here in my office talking to my computer. Cool? So here's what we're going to cover today. Today I am going to reveal to you each and every step in much more depth, my 10-element perfect ad writing formula or template. I'm going to reveal to you all the elements, and as I do that, we're going to take some questions. Then I'm going to show you live examples of ads that are actually live right now that you can kind of swipe and deploy. And then, depending on timing, and I got to figure this out, but depending on timing, there may be a possibility for me to take one of you off of mute and actually go through this process live with you if possible. All right? So don't hold me to that. If we have time, we'll make it happen. And if we don't, I'm trusting, don't worry. All the Q&As and the content is going to be the same nonetheless. Now, why should you be listening to me, and why should you be paying a little more attention? Well, frankly and truly, I've been fortunate enough to be the guy behind some of the highest ROIs in the industry, up to 30,000% ROI. You can see some of our ROIs on your screens there. We're generating literally millions of leads per month for ourselves and our clients. You can see one of these screenshots here was something that we did late last year. 12 days, 92,000 leads, and we're doing this day in and day out for our clients. Also, we generate some pretty darn good revenue. Here's an example of a campaign that we're running. Generated 470,000 leads and $3.2 million in about 27 days time, and we do this kind of month in and month out. And here's what I'm saying behind the whole thing. The common denominator behind all these leads, behind all these campaigns, behind the millions of dollars in revenue that we generate, the common denominator is this: the ad formula that I'm about to reveal to you. Each and every one of these experiences have literally been me utilizing this ad template that I'm going to show you right now. So here are some of the risks that you might encounter if in fact you don't have this formula and you try to go about your business without having it. First is what I call blank white screens or blank white pages. It's that moment where you open up the Power Editor, you're looking at the Power Editor and you're like, by golly, I need to write an ad and I don't exactly know what to write. Now, I don't know about you, but many times in the past I've had writer's block. I stare at the screen, scratching and itching and finding every distraction known to man before I actually get to writing this. So here's one of the risks that can happen if you don't understand this content. Number two, you'll be hoping and guessing. What do I mean by that? Is like when you kind of are writing an ad, you just have no idea if that ad is going to convert or not. So you kind of think and you hope and you guess and you pray and you believe that the ads are going to convert the way you want, but you just don't know. And I don't know about you, but having uncertainty or a lack of confidence in business is kind of one of the detriments. And so I want to get us past all that. And thirdly, you might have the risk of spending a small fortune. Look, I don't want you to hope and guess. I don't want you to have almost no leads, but the reality is, I mean, if I asked anybody in here, how many of you have donated to the Facebook fund? In other words, you've spent money on ad spend and you have not seen a return. In fact, let me just ask that question to everybody here. How many people on this training right now have donated to the Facebook fund, have literally spent money on their ads and not seen a return? In other words, you're just kind of, you figured you got to spend money somewhere, so you ended up spending it on Facebook. Anybody done that, been there? Yeah, 100% true. Me, a lot. Yep. Okay, so philanthropic. I like that, Michael. As much as I appreciate philanthropy, that is not something that we are trying to hope for here. I've donated a lot, quite a few campaigns. Wow, some people have donated over $5K to Facebook. So we want to put an end to that. I don't want you to spend a small fortune and not get a return. Now, if you kind of have experienced all those things, right, the blank white screen, the hoping and the guessing, and you spent a small fortune, ultimately you could feel stuck. Right? I mean, if you don't have a system for creating ads that get clicks and drive revenue, you might even feel stuck in your business, especially if Facebook is your primary means to generate traffic and revenue. So in other words, we don't want to be in that situation. If you do have and you specifically deploy what we are going to be talking about here are the opportunities that are at hand. If you get this right, by the end of this, number one, you can blink it. What do I mean by that? You can just follow the footsteps of me, who have literally done this and do it day in and day out to get the results that we do. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to scratch your head and wonder. You can literally follow this and just blink it so that you can get everything that's required without any putting, too much thought into it. Next, instead of being uncertain, you'll be certain. You'll be confident that every time you write an ad, it'll most likely convert. And if it does, you know the few tweaks that you can make in order for it to do so. So if you blink it and you're certain, then, and best part is, you'll get an ROI, right? When you have ads that convert, you'll have return on investment, or more specifically, return on ad spend. And then, rather than feeling stuck, your business can grow fast and take off at the rate that you want it to. Now, just to give you hindsight of this, again, one of the stats that I just pulled yesterday, and again, this was just yesterday for a campaign that I'm currently running right now. This campaign was running for about 3.5 weeks. We spent about $10,000 or just under $11,000 in ad spend, and it generated just over $250,000 in ad spend, in revenue, which gives us just over a 2,000% ROI. So this is what works. This is the reality of it, and this is what I want to share with you. Now, before we get into the specific elements here, let me go and lay some foundation here. Because I think if we don't have the foundation, some of us can go sideways, and I don't want that to happen to anybody. So foundational piece number one is really understanding the purpose of your ad. Now, I do a lot of podcast interviews and have a lot of interviews, and one of the first questions that comes up often from people is, what is the number one mistake that people make in ads? And my answer has always been that they are trying to do too much in the ad. In other words, they're actually trying to sell something in the ad itself rather than understanding what I'm about to share with you. So here's the reality. On Facebook, the straight line is not the straight line. Now, here's what I mean by that. More often than not, let's say we're promoting an event or a particular product or something like that, you would think that the easiest way to sell that thing is on the ad, try to sell the product. And so the straight line, the shortest distance between 2 points, is a straight line. So a lot of people think, well, I'm just going to sell the product from my ad, right? But the reality is, and here's kind of one of the key takeaway points here, is that the straight line is not always a straight line on Facebook. Every step of your marketing process should only sell, quote unquote, the next logical thing in the process. And so there's a step, there's a pattern towards all this, and we want to start with every step of the process, and every step of the process should only sell the next step of the process, which takes us to the reality that the point of the ad then is simply to get the click. Now, I'm not talking about clickbait type clicks, but if you see it in the bigger spectrum of your sales funnel, if you see it in the bigger spectrum of everything that's trying to get accomplished, then the point of the ad is simply to get the click. Again, not in some spammy or douchey way full of like clickbait, but where you realize that the right message presented to the right audience, and you realize that there's a right logistical steps to everything. You realize that each step of the funnel has its purpose. So the point of the ad, and this is important, write this down, the point of the ad is to get the click. Then the point of the landing page, if you're sending them to a landing page and doing lead capture, then is to capture the lead. Then the sales page is designed to sell the offer. The order page is designed to collect the credit card or the order information. So you don't want to bypass any of those steps by, having your ad try to do too much, i.e. sell the product, when that's in fact what your landing page or maybe your sales page is designed to do. So the counterbalance to this is what I call the non-ad ad. Now, here's one friend of mine. I just pulled this screenshot this morning for this presentation. Here's a friend of mine, Jim Quick. You may have heard him on the Jim Ferriss podcast. He's a brilliant kind of thinker and great with the mind and all that. And if you look at this, doesn't come across like an ad. He's like, congratulations to my friend Michael, who just came out with this book. A lot of books talk about what and how to be successful, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at this, it doesn't look like an ad, although it could be. Now, this specifically isn't an ad, but the idea is I want people to think of a non-ad ad. I don't want you to think that when you're creating ads that they should look and act and smell like ads. Because remember, Facebook is a social platform. And so we got to remember social context. Not everybody who wakes up in the morning comes on the Facebook platform, and then when they do, they're looking to buy something with credit card in hand, right? People get on Facebook as a social platform. So if they kind of get a sense that you're trying to sell them something, they're probably going to repel you to a certain degree. However, if your ad doesn't in fact look like an ad, but looks a little bit more like a social share, which is obviously kind of what we're trying to go for here, then you're going to be well better off. So I hope people got the understanding of the foundation. With the foundation, now I want to go into the 3 key principles that are required in each of the 11 or the 10 elements. So these 10 elements factor into the 3 key principles to crafting the perfect attention-grabbing, prospect-connecting, action-resulting message or ad. And I know that's a long title, but here are the key 3: attention, connection, and action. I'll say that one more time and we'll deep dive into all three of them. So 3 key principles for doing this is attention, connection, and action. And these 3 principles are going to incorporate my 10 elements, or the 10 stages of the ad writing blueprint. So let's start with principle number 1, attention. And again, this all starts by understanding social behavior. Now think about this. Think about when you wake up in the morning and you pull up your mobile phone and you're going through the Facebook social news feed. It probably looks a little something like this, right? So you're kind of just going and you're like scrolling through your news feed, probably at light speeds, and you're seeing image after image after image after text, going. And so if that's the case, we have to realize that the commodity that we're fighting for, the commodity that is really the competition that's out there, is attention. We are all fighting for the idea of capturing someone's attention. So your first object, the object of your ad, or the first goal of the ad, is to in fact capture attention. So before you can work on really snazzy copy, or before you can try to focus on persuasion or influence, before you can do that with anybody, you need to first capture attention. Because again, if you're anything like the guy on the screen or like me, your attention is scattered. You're scrolling through your news feed at light speed, and now if you're just focusing on really good copy or something like that to persuade or influence someone to take an action, you've missed the very first step. So if you don't know how to catch your prospect's attention in the news feed, I guarantee you that you're going to be ignored. And if you're going to be ignored, then your business is dying a very slow death. So then how do we capture attention in the news feed when we are writing ads? Well, first and foremost, I believe the initial thing that captures that attention is in fact the image. In fact, I'm going to be bold enough to make this claim that 80% of the success of your ads, or like 95% of your ability to capture someone's attention, is going to fall on your image and or your video if you do video ads. But for the most part, 80% of the success of your ad is going to fall on the image, and the attention portion of your ad is going to be 100% reliant on that image. So how do we make your image work? This is so important. How do we make your image work? Well, point number 1, we want your image to pop. I ask this question all the time: where is the best place to hide a tree? And the obvious answer to that question is in a forest. Why? Because the tree will blend in. So in this case, we actually want to do the opposite of that. If you could see the Facebook newsfeed as a forest, the last thing you want to do is put one of your trees there, because it's just going to blend in. See, the Facebook newsfeed is packed with image after image after video after image after video. In fact, if you scroll through your newsfeed right now, that's primarily what you're going to see. So your image and or video needs to pop. How do we do that? One of 2 ways. One of the ways is by simply increasing contrast. So you're looking on your screen right here, you're looking at the exact same image. Now, let me just ask you, I know this is an obvious answer, but let me just get some interaction here. Between the image on the left and the image on the right, which image captures your attention better? And go ahead and kind of just type that into the Q&A box, just so I make sure you're tracking with me. Out of the image of the left and the image on the right, which image captures your attention better? Right, everybody says right. The right wows, Colleen says, right? 100% right. Never ask a question you don't know how to answer. Right. What? Obviously. Now, here's the crazy part about this. It's the exact same image. The only thing I did different between image left and image right is I image into Photoshop or PowerPoint or any photo editor, and I simply increased the contrast by 20 to 30%. That's all I did, and all of a sudden the image now pops. So think about this. If someone is scrolling through their newsfeed and they're seeing normal image after normal image after normal image after normal image, and all of a sudden they see an image like this that pops stronger than everything else, immediately it's going to catch their attention. So the first way to make your images pop and to capture attention is to take the image that you're going to use, put it into a photo editor of some sort, and then change the contrast anywhere from 10 to 30%, whatever kind of makes the most sense. Or if you want, you can do the opposite. Now the opposite would be making it black and white, right? Grayscale. Because again, if you're scrolling through your newsfeed and you see image after image after image after image, and then all of a sudden color after color after color, and then you pop into a black and white, you're like, whoa, 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 wait a second, grayscale, or even sepia, right? The point here is to make your image stand out from everybody else's image. But let me put a very, very strong caveat here. Please, for the love of God and all things beautiful, okay, do not be one of these spammy marketers who use like really ultra bright red borders or some really weird like fluorescent colors. Okay, if you take it a step further like that, basically that screams, you know, I'm a marketer, look at me, pay attention, and most people want to ignore marketers. So do not go nuts with kind of crazy colors or like borders. You don't want to sound or look like a marketer, but you do want to increase the contrast, go black and white, grayscale, or sepia, just to have your images pop out from, you know, anything else that might be in the news feed. Okay, I hope that makes sense. That's kind of the first thing you want to do with your image, right? Now, the second thing that you want to do with your image is provoke emotion through story. I'll say that one more time. You want to see if you can provoke emotion through story or metaphor. Because we all know, and it's a proven fact, that people don't buy based on logic. People buy and take actions based on emotions, right? So think about this. Why does somebody go out there and buy a Lamborghini, for example? Why does someone go out there and buy a supercar? Is it because they need a car to take them from point A to point B? Is it because they need a little bit of air conditioning or fuel economy? Is it because they want to pick up their kids or pick up the groceries? Obviously not. Somebody buys a vehicle like this because it appeals to something on the inside of them, right? Whether it's pride or whether it's significance or maybe a little ego or self-worth or attention, or maybe they're just an age-driven personality that likes that sort of thing. Whatever it be, we have to realize that people are buying and taking actions based on emotions, not logic. So if you can find an image that provokes emotion, that tells a story through metaphor, then you're on the right track. For example, here's an image that I like to use, and I use it in my template all the time. This image, without any copy, says a whole ton of things just in and of itself. In fact, let me throw it back out there and say, when you see this image, what is the story that it's being told? What is the lessons, or what are the feelings being communicated? And as soon as you see this image, go ahead and type into the box, what are the first things that kind of come to mind? One person says, Soren says success, right? Michael says freedom, a lack of cares. Right? I mean, look at the guy. He's wearing some nice shades. He's having an amazing day. One guy saying, Colleen saying, I made it. Different people are perceiving different things, but do you see how that's working? I mean, he's in a car. We don't know what kind of car it is, but it seems like it might be a nice luxury car. It's not like olivey green color, maybe an Aston Martin. He's wearing French cuffs, a watch, you know, shades. His hair's done up, skinny tie, just above the belt line. He's wearing, you know, his black and whites. I mean, it could say all sorts of things without actually using any words. So I want you to think about that. Or what about this image? And go ahead and respond again in the Q&A box. When you see this image, right? What is it that kind of speaks out to you? What is it that kind of, the messaging that kind of comes to mind? Right? Fear, someone says. Depressed, right? Angry, primitive anger. I like that, primitive anger. Anger, Kim says, right? So there's, again, without using any copy whatsoever. Someone says a dentist ad. Yeah, maybe. He's got pretty good teeth. But without even using copy, this message, it's black and white, right? It's grayscale. It's communicating messaging without actually saying anything. Cody says he's going for a CrossFit workout. Yeah, probably, right? So the point is, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so the way that I approach images when I'm thinking about ads is, if I was writing an ad, but I could not use any copy, and the ad itself had to be 100% based simply on my image, what image would I choose? If I couldn't use words, what image would I use to tell the story that I'm trying to communicate? What is the message that I'm trying to forecast with the image that I'm trying to use, right? Here's another example. I mean, what is this image saying, right? Now, I'm not going to ask. I mean, it could be a whole bunch of things. It could mean pain. It could be in a third world country. It could be, prison captivity. It could be, a basketball court in Brooklyn. We don't know. But regardless, the imagery is speaking a message, right? Or even something like this. We've used this image in some ads before. Right? It's a little bit different. It's like, okay, there's a girl on a laptop sitting on a really large briefcase on what looks like some kind of concrete or sand, and there's mountains in the background. Like, there's a lot going on here. The case in point is when you're selecting images, think, again, high contrast, or have the image pop in a certain way, and B, have it provoke emotion through story or metaphor. Now, the only other thing to note about this is, please, for the love of God, use relevant images. Do not just use something that is eye-catchy, that has absolutely no relevance to what it is that you're showing. Here's an actual image of an ad, a screenshot that I took a little while ago, that proves exactly what you shouldn't do. I mean, there's an image of a girl in a bikini on a phone, on a surfboard in the water with palm trees, and then the ad copy is, hey, do you guys want to see the results from one of my recent Facebook retargeting ad campaigns? As though this was connected to the ad campaign, which it wasn't, in fact. Then you should definitely watch this 4-minute video, which had nothing to do with this girl, by the way. And then it's funny, one of the actual comments in the ads actually says, no, I don't want to know the results, but can you show more pictures of this girl? Case in point, you can't just pick images that catch attention. You want to pick images that are completely relevant. So in a world where there is so much noise in the marketplace and attention is key, you can start to capture attention by using a poppy image that provokes emotions. Okay, so let me kind of open it up here to some Q&As around the image portion of what we discussed, right? Or the attention grabbing portion. Remember, three key principles. This was number one, attention. I just want to open up any questions right now that anyone might have with regards to attention grabbing, with regards to the images that you could use, with regards to provoking emotion or anything like that. So as you start writing some of those questions, I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. Okay, Rod says, do you put copy on the image? That's a great question. We're going to get more into that when I show you some live examples, and the answer is yes and no. So most of the time, I'm not going to put any copy on an image, going back again to kind of this realization that it's a social platform, and because it's a social platform, I don't want my images to appear like ads, and only images with copy are ad-like. However, we always split test, so we are always comparing the two, Rod, but the short answer is no, I don't always put copy on images, but yes, I will test some images with copy to see how they do, right? Someone asked, where do you find these images? Any one of the royalty-free stock photo sites are great. RF123 can work. Our agency has a subscription to Adobe Stock Photo. If you're going to use Google Images, put the filter that says under license, and again, I don't know exactly the wording, but you go under license and you say free to use or share for non-commercial use or commercial use. You can find images on Google that way. Just make sure you're not using any Google image, because you will, in fact, if you're using the wrong image and somebody else's image, you will get fined for that sort of thing, so you don't want to do that. Colleen is asking, is one image better than a montage? Again, I will split test that. Usually, for the most part, I will do a single image as my baseline, but we will sometimes split test something else just to see how that might go. But yeah, I will always kind of start with a single image. One question here, what would you use for back pain treatment. That's a tricky one, okay? Because you definitely don't want to put people with back pain, because that is going to be a no-no for Facebook. So if I was going to write an ad for back pain treatment, I might do the opposite. Rather than focusing too much on the pain, I would show someone who doesn't have back pain doing things that they love to do, like walking their dog or playing with their kids, or doing that sort of thing. All right. A couple other questions on sources for great images, top sites that you're going to use pull images from. Again, any of these royalty-free iStock Photo, RF123, Adobe Stock Photo are all great. And then there's some free sites out there as well. Someone says, when selecting an image, and let me just finish this off here. Is it best to upload higher quality images on Facebook? And the answer is absolutely. You always want to put the highest quality image when you're using your ads, and then Facebook will adjust it accordingly, but you'll want to go ahead and do that. Someone is asking, good editing software. Look, whatever you know how to use to be able to edit images, right? I'm not a real techie person, so when it comes to like Photoshop and stuff like that, I get all confused, and so I either have our designers do, well, in fact, now I have always our designers do it, but if you're doing it yourself, I know some people who use PowerPoint. I see people using Fireworks or Adobe Photoshop or any one of these things, but anything that allows you to manipulate an image, you can even find some free resources online that can work as well. So that's that. Another question here. If you're a business consultant and you're focusing on revenue growth, this is kind of usually a boring topic. Yeah, so I'm guessing the question is kind of more along the lines of what kind of images would you use? That's a great question. Again, I'm thinking metaphor, right? So keep in mind that most of my clients and customers are business folks who are looking to kind of increase their business. So if that is kind of the thing, I'm still looking for unique and creative ways, and I'll show you a couple examples of some that I've used in the past. That you can do that. Someone's saying if I'm promoting software, and these are the last couple questions here, if I'm promoting a software, what kind of images will work? I would try the software, but again, I'm also looking at metaphors of what the software represents. So if it's an accounting software, I'm going to show someone who's happy, you know, getting their accounting done, and that sort of thing. If I'm to market a t-shirt design, how do you go about that? Yeah, so if you're doing t-shirts, obviously one of them would be to show the t-shirts. If the t-shirt's about a particular topic, so let's say the t-shirt's about dogs or pugs, for example, I'd put a picture of like the cutest pug I could find and use that as an attention-grabbing thing. Do you like to use things like arrow pointers or focus points? The short answer is no, because again, that looks addy and spammy. I don't like to do that, unless of course it's kind of like a screenshot of something that I'm liking to highlight a particular thing. How do you get, and these are the last few here, how do you get Facebook to approve an image of that woman? We tried it similar. I don't know how that person got approval of that woman. That was a long time ago, and I don't think that that would work. How would you use this process for physical product? Same sort of thing. If the physical product represents something bigger, like the goal or the outcome of what they're trying to accomplish, then you want to show the outcome metaphor rather than just the physical product itself. But again, you'll want to split test those. Why is back pain image a no-no on Facebook? Because it is suggesting pain to the user, and you can't suggest pain to a user. The resolution, Facebook, you want to go as high res as you can, because Facebook is going to deal with that. And then standard images for the different types of images that you're using have different sizes. So a quick Google search will let you know what size the image should be, so you can use. Keynote works for me. Great site is Canva, Keith says. Canva.com for imaging editing, and I think with Canva you can throw some text and all that sort of stuff on top of the images as well. So I think that answered all the image questions. I hope we are flowing. That was attention. Let's move on to key principle number 2. Key principle number 2 is connection. See, once we've captured attention, our next goal then is to create a connection with our ideal prospect. See, one of the biggest issues I see with most advertisers, again, is that they try to sell on their ads and they forget the fact that Facebook is in fact a social platform, and they throw the social context out the window. Look, nobody comes onto Facebook looking to buy something. So if you come across sounding like a business person or a marketer that's constantly trying to sell something, then you are most likely going to get shut down. So instead, once you've captured attention, our next goal is to create connection, because I believe, and I know this is kind of getting a little kind of outside the scope of the technology or the technicality of Facebook ads, but at the end of the day, one of the greatest human needs is to feel connected to other people, right? In fact, when you can create connection, you are creating what I call the buying trifecta. And the buying trifecta is know, like, and trustability, because we all know that we all buy from people we know, like, and trust. And so to create that buying trifecta of know, like, and trust, we need to be able to connect with our ideal prospect. So we can do this in many ways, but I want to show you two of the key ways that I deploy each time we write an ad. And the first way we do that is by starting with a yes. Again, start with a yes. For example, if I were to go downstairs to my wife and I say, hey babe, do you want to go on vacation? Her answer would be yes. See, I have found that the mind can't actually resist trying to answer a question. So we generally like to start all of our ads by asking a question as a way to hook or to connect with our ideal prospect, but not just any question. You want to start with a question that has an implied yes to it. Because think about this. When you ask a question that gets a yes response, something happens psychologically and physiologically to that person. So if you ask them that's a question that gets kind of a yes from them, number one, their mood elevates, right? I mean, if I ask again my wife, hey, do you want to go on vacation? All of a sudden her mind is thinking, yeah, where can we go? What kind of vacation can we go on? What are we going to do? So her mood elevates, and they see you in a different light. In other words, they see you in a more positive light because you're talking about something that they like. Not only that, but they see the situation in a different light. I mean, the moment you bring up something that somebody likes, even if they're having kind of a down day, the fact that you bring up something that they like kind of lifts their spirits a little bit. In fact, let me go as far to say this. We're essentially in the business of releasing happy hormones into our prospects. I hope that makes sense, but that's really it. If you, through your copy and your imagery, have the ability to release endorphins and serotonin and all these kind of happy hormones that make people feel great, the more happy hormones that are released and the more that those hormones are attached to experiences with you, the easier the sale becomes. Now think about that for a second. We are in the job through our ad copy and through our entire sales process, for that matter, in the business of releasing the happy hormone. So we want to connect first with our prospect by asking them a question that gets an implied yes, because when that happens, it does one of three things. Number one, it qualifies that person. So if I'm like, hey, do you want to get more leads using Facebook? And that person says yes, they are qualified to take that next step with me. If that person reads that ad and says no, then they're not going to waste time. They're, pre-qualifying themselves not to make that next step. Secondly, it sets the tone. Right? Now think about this. Who has more authority in a conversation? The person asking the questions or the person answering the questions? Now the obvious answer to that is the one asking the questions. So if you can set the tone simply by asking questions, you almost position yourself as an authority that way. And thirdly, by starting with a yes question, you're essentially getting the prospect to say yes. And we all know that sales is really nothing more than a series of small yeses that lead to a big yes. So let me show you 4 ad examples where we start with the question, just so you can get a hang of what we're talking about. On the left side is an ad that we deployed for one of our clients who is reaching out to those who are looking to improve their productivity and to achieve more goals in their life, okay? And so the simple yes question started with, want to discover how to rewire your brain for easy goal achievement, okay? Now, if you're the ideal prospect for that, your obvious answer is yes. On the right-hand side, this is an ad going out to Dame and John fans. Do you want to know what Dame and John says is one of the most important things that we can experience? Well, if you're a Dame and John fan, you're going to bet that most people are going to say yes. Right? Here's 2 more. On the left side, we're going after people who are looking to invest in gold and silver, want to discover how to protect your wealth with gold and silver and create income from the coming currency collapse, right? If you are interested in financial matters and you're looking to invest in gold and silver, then your answer is obviously yes. And then on the right-hand side, want to discover a wealth building strategy that has never had a losing year in more than 160 years. Now, if you're involved in any sort of investing whatsoever, you're probably going to say yes to that. Now, notice the questions aren't like, hey, what did you have for lunch today? Because that wouldn't be a yes or no question. And the problem with that is if you ask, hey, what did you have for lunch today? What if they didn't have a good thing for lunch, right? What if they now are in a confused state because they don't remember what they had for lunch? Like a whole bunch of things can go wrong if you go about it that way. But if you ask a proper yes question, then you're putting people in the right state. So part number 1 to creating connection is asking a yes question. And then part number 2 then is to build rapport. Okay, remember we want to create connection, so the idea here is to build rapport. How do we do that? I say we use the 4 forces. Okay, now I believe that every human action is usually birthed out of one of 4 forces or 4 reasons. You see on the spectrum here, what you're seeing on your screen is that people from left to right are always trying to move away from something or towards something. And then what they are feeling is either immediate or it's imagined, okay? So here are the 4 forces. Force number 1, frustrations. People are trying to move away from frustrations that they're currently feeling, and those are immediate. They can feel those things in their life right now. Or they're moving away from fears. So things that they're not necessarily experiencing right now, but they're put off for a little bit in the future. Now, even if those fears will never come to pass, a lot of people are feeling that way. So frustrations and fears are the 2 forces. And then the other 2 are wants. So these are immediate things that people want right now that they can identify. Or aspirations, kind of more far off, a few years to come type things that they want to accomplish. So I call these the 4 forces, and I'm going to encourage you now, as one of the exercises that you do in the midst of all this, is to make sure you get very clearly intimate with the 4 forces of your ideal prospect or client. Know their fears, know their frustrations, know their wants, and know their aspirations. Now, just as kind of a quick side note here, and this is a question out to everybody, which part of the quadrant, the left side or the right side, do you think creates greater action? Do you think frustrations and fears create greater action, or do you think wants and aspirations create greater actions? Let's see what people are saying. The right side, wants and aspirations, or the left side, fears and frustrations? Let's see what people have to say. Wow, it's mixed. Some people say the positive platform, some people say the left side, the right side, the left side, the frustrations, the left, the right. Very, very interesting. Facebook generally doesn't like you calling out on the left side. The answer is true. So here's the fact. Psychologically speaking, in all of our tests, we have found that the left side does drive more action than the right side, but there are exceptions to the rule depending on the niche that you're in. But it's always said that people are more predisposed to taking action based on the fear of loss than the potential for gain. Now, that doesn't mean you can't and shouldn't understand them all, but I do want you to get very clear about understanding all of these, okay? Understand the fears and frustrations as well as your wants and aspirations of your ideal prospect, and see how you can incorporate them all. Because if you can, and you know the 4 forces, and I'm going to show you an example of this in a second, but you would use a copy formula that I call feel, felt, found. In your rapport statement of your ad, where it basically says, I know how you feel. That's the connection. I felt the same way too. Further rapport until I have found this, which leads you into your offer. It is a perfect copy sequence that you can use over and over again. I'll show you an example of that in just a minute. But again, the point here is when you understand the 4 forces or the hot buttons here, you want to incorporate that into your copy in order for you to have the ability to connect with your ideal prospect and start to draw them in. Now, again, I'm going to show you a live example of that in just a second. But if point number 1 would capture attention, then point number 2 that we discussed here is create connection. And we do that by starting with a yes question and by building rapport utilizing the 4 forces. So I just want to open up to Q&A here with regards to anything about this second portion of the webinar here, the training, the second portion that we just discussed here. Someone is asking, do you know of any books that you could recommend that dives deeper into this topic? Actually, I get this question asked a lot, and the reality is I don't really know. Influence by Cialdini is a great book, and he just came out actually with another book called Persuasion or Persuasion. Those, I think, play a lot into this. Predictably Irrational is another cool book that talks about a little bit of the psychology behind that. But really, at the end of the day, what I'm suggesting is the more intimate you get with the 4 forces of your clients, the better, because you'll naturally begin to know what those are. Next question, can you give us some examples of the weight loss industry? Well, first and foremost, you don't want to go directly after, hey, do you want to lose weight or do you feel fat? Obviously, that wouldn't work. But I would take an angle of something else. So I know one of our clients is in the fat loss industry, but they focus front end on inflammation. And so the angles that we take are inflammation-based, and that's a great way where you could start to ask questions. Another one is curiosity-based, so a question that breeds curiosity, not necessarily a yes question, but something that's along those lines is what the doctors aren't telling you or what you don't know about, let's say, magnesium deficiency could be hurting you. Want to know what that is. So that's a curiosity-based one that kind of leads to a yes answer. Where in the ad is the question typically asked? The answer to that is first thing, and I'm going to show you examples of that, but it's the first thing that we put in the ad. Next question, how do you appeal to the left quadrant without creating negativity? Yeah, you don't want to necessarily create negativity, you just want to create connection. Again, I'm going to show you some examples of that, but there are ways to do that without making people feel terrible. And sometimes that's through case study based, sometimes that's using yourself as an example to say, want to see how I overcame a nagging knee injury that I've had over the last 4 years. Something like that can work. Why does Facebook prefer the right side? Can you still use the left side? Facebook tends to prefer the right side because you're not actually calling people out and making them feel bad. See, Facebook is trying to protect their community, and if you kind of call people out and make them feel bad, Facebook doesn't really like that. That's not to say we avoid the left side. We just do it far more calculated so that we're not making people kind of feel a ways about it. When it comes to an existing audience like your customers list, I'm not sure what that question is related to, so I'll kind of go on. Can you use a testimonial in the rapport section with the feel, felt, found? Yes, 100%. In fact, testimonials are really, really great at building rapport because you can use the testimonial to ask the question, to build rapport, to have the person relate, to overcome objections. I think that's a great way to build rapport, yes. Once again, calling back pain as a frustration will get you slapped. Again, yeah, I referred to a knee pain example of that you can use. Above pick, below pick. Keep in mind these are all going to have, these are your ad copy. So this is going to happen above picture. And again, I'm going to show you a couple examples of that. So don't worry about that. How would you ask a question related to supplements? Let's say, let me just see here. in an article. Again, depending on what the question is all about or what the article is all about, you can ask a question that's related to how the supplement affects the ideal outcome of that. I hope that helps. So when you take on a client, how do you go about the research to understand? I have a very specific onboarding questionnaire that I give to all my clients that helps me to dive deeper into those things, and then we have a very specific proprietary kind of market research that we figure out as well. One question is, how important is the targeting for this? Is it better to have one message? Yeah, the quick answer is targeting is super, super important. Obviously, the ideal perfect ad is the right message to the right person at the right time. So you definitely want to have your targeting dialed in and asking questions that are relevant to your ideal target and audience, because those are going to hit the most home. So those are all the questions I see for key principle number 2. Let's move on to key principle number 3, and that is action, right? So that is action. We've had attention, we've had connection, and now we have action. And here's kind of, I stumbled upon this like a couple of years ago because I had written an ad offering a lead magnet. And as I was reading through the comments on the ad, one of the comments was, yes, I want the lead magnet, how do I get it? And I thought, geez, lady, all you got to do is click the ad. So I couldn't help but respond, and so I wrote a response to the question, says, just click the ad. And the person responded, oh, like H, exclamation mark, exclamation, exclamation mark, which I thought was hilarious. They didn't realize that they could click the ad to actually get what it is that we were offering for them. So the point here is you always want to give a call to action and tell your ideal prospect what you want them to do. So here's what I want to do. I actually want to go through the template and all 10 of the elements, showing you examples on the left side with the template on the right side, so you can get a real kind of hang of this. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples, and then at the end of that, we'll take some Q&A, all right? So here are the samples with the template on the right-hand side. If you have the template, follow along, print it out somewhere, take notes on it. If not, you can see the template here on the screen. I provided it for you. So as you can see on the on the right-hand side, we've got the template. On the left-hand side, we actually have a real ad from one of my clients and good friends, Taki Moore, the $1 Million Coach. And you'll see element number 1, start with a question, right? Element number 1, start with a question. So what do we do on the left-hand side? Now keep in mind the ideal target here is a coach or a consultant who's typically using the phone to enroll clients into their business, right? So this is a person who's probably spent a lot of time on the phone and heard objection after objection and got rejection after rejection. This is the ideal client or customer that we're targeting here. And so the question asks this: want to discover a simple 9-minute strategy that increases your client enrollment to 71 to 84% without the need or without any need to pressure prospects, sell hard, or be weird, right? The obvious answer to the ideal prospect there is yes. Of course I wanted to know a 9-minute strategy that's going to increase my client enrollment up to 84% without having to pressure prospects, sell hard, or be weird, right? So we always start with a question. Element number 2, build rapport. Now watch this. After hundreds of enrollment calls over the last 5 years, I have found that you can waste a lot of time with unqualified tire kickers handling objections, excuses, and stalls, all of which means your business is stalled, right? Notice how we did that, feel and felt. So the connection here is obviously the person has probably spent tons of hours and time on the phone trying to close prospects or enroll prospects into their business, and they've experienced probably unqualified people. They've experienced objections. They've experienced excuses like, oh, let me get back to you on that, or stalls, right? Let me talk to my significant other before we make that decision. So the first statement is all about building rapport. After having hundreds of enrollment calls over the last 5 years, I've found that you can waste a lot of time with unqualified tire kickers, handling objections, excuses, and stalls, all, which means your business is stalled. Look, if you're the ideal customer and client there, you are definitely now building rapport and creating connection with this person, because you're like, yes, I feel you, I hear you, right? Now, here's kind of the next step to it, and a couple of things I want to point to this, right? There is perceived value and perceived risk for every offer that you make, right? So our goal then is to increase or up the value while doing our best to decrease or remove the risk. So when we're making offers in our ads, we remove the risk simply by offering something for free, which is easy, and we up the value doing a couple of things. Number one, we have a really good name for what it is that we're offering. So in the ad example here, we're calling it the triage call. I think that's a really sexy name. The triage call blueprint has a little bit of curiosity to it, has a little bit of like, I wonder what that is, a little bit of proprietary. So that kind of ups the value. And the second thing to do is we want to inject a little scarcity. So you'll see on element 3 right now, I've showed you element 1 and element 2. Now element 3, time sensitivity. I love to use words like today or this week or in the next few days. So you can see on paragraph 3 right there, right? On paragraph 3 it says, this week I'm giving away a free copy of the triage call. It could say in the next few days I'm giving away a copy, or today I'm giving a free copy. Again, it's not saying that it's today and today only. You don't want to give that impression, but you do want, if I say this week I'm giving away a free copy of the triage call, it implies slight scarcity to the whole idea. And so people want to get it now before it's too late, because I believe there's a couple of reasons why people don't transact with you, and one of those reasons is because they feel like they have time to make that decision. So if we can remove a little bit of that time element from that decision-making process, right? Element 3 here, we do time sensitivity. So we're like this week or today or in the next few days. Element number 4, as you can see there, is the offer. What is that? I'm giving away a free copy of the triage call, the 9-minute shortcut that signs A-grade clients blueprint. In it, I will break down the 5 steps to deploy in your business. Click here to register to download your copy. Now, if you look right above the rapport building statement, again, you want to offer the same thing. The feel, felt, found, right? After having hundreds of calls, I found that you can waste a lot of time, et cetera, et cetera. Feel, felt, and then found. And then I came up with a simple 9-minute strategy called the triage call that changed everything. Using the triage call, I now speak only with A players, and I enroll up to 91% of the prospects I speak with, and then you get into the time sensitivity. This week, I want to give you that very thing that I've found. I hope you're tracking so far, right? So element number 1, start with a question. Element number 2, build rapport. After rapport, do follow the feel, felt, found kind of sequence. And as you do that, element number 3 is add time sensitivity. Element 4, make the offer. Tell them exactly what they're getting. Element 5 is the call to action. So you'll see my last line in there above the images in this, the last line is click here to register to download your copy. I'm telling them exactly what I want them to do. Click here to download your copy. Element 6 is what I call a scrambled URL. So you'll notice that in all of the ads that we run, we don't actually put the URL there. Instead, we take that URL and we use a URL shortener like bit.ly, or you can use Google URL shortener, or you can use Twitter's URL shortener. The shortener doesn't actually matter all that much, but you want to shorten it because now we scramble that URL and people have this kind of like desire to click a hyperlink, right? It's kind of a natural tendency that if you see copy and then you see a hyperlink, which is blue text, and then if I just kind of put my regular URL out there, there might be the temptation for, like if it was nicholasqzx900.com/triage, for example, there might be the temptation that someone would go and try and type that in the browser in a new tab. And some of you might be thinking, well, it's not all that bad. Well, actually, it is bad because we want to track which ads are working better, and the only way we can do that is for us to get the click. Remember, the point of the ad is to the click. So I'm putting a call to action with there in element 6. I'm scrambling the URL to create a hyperlink, and no matter how diligent someone is, I guarantee you they're not going to go, and type in this confusing URL into the browser. They're just going to take the easy way out, which is to click it. Okay, so we got element 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 taken care of. Element 7 is the image. So in this case, and I'm going to show you a couple of other image variations here, but here's one where we did in fact add some text to the image. We popped the contrast a little bit, and it's just kind of a picture of an old school telephone. So there's a little bit of metaphor here talking about a call. It's related to the name of the magnet. But again, the point here is you always want to be split testing images. So here's an example of the exact same ad with two different split tested images. On the left, we're referring more to the call side of things. On the right, we're talking about being weird or being a sleazy salesperson in the first kind of a sentence there without the need to pressure prospects, sell hard, or be weird. So we wanted to relate to that element. So we split tested these two images against each other to see which one worked. Exactly same copy, two different images, which is something you want to do. And then here are some other, again, same copy, different images. So on the left-hand side, we tested an image from the magnet itself with a high-profile person with one of the points of the triage call, which is don't impress, assess. And then on the right-hand side, we actually have an image of the very magnet that we're giving away. And we have an image of Taki, who's the guy behind the magnet. Okay, so we are split testing all of these all simultaneously at the same time. So the case in point here that I want you to write down is once you've got your text dialed in, you want to have split test images, and you can test images with text or without text. You can test images with the magnet that you're giving away or the product that you're selling, and one without, and you want to see which do better. Okay, now going back, element number 8 here, as you can see, right, is the headline, which is basically you want to be very clear about what it is that you're trying to offer. So I always like to say in square brackets, free download, if I'm offering a lead magnet, free download, say the name of the actual magnet with a benefit statement connected with it. So in this case, hey, free download, the triage call blueprint. And then the benefit is the simple 9-minute shortcut that signs A-grade clients more easily, right? A very straight up benefit-driven statement with the name of your offer, okay? Element 9 is reiterating the benefit. So you want a supporting benefit statement with a cliffhanger sentence. Let me show you how we play this out. On the left-hand side, discover the 5-step blueprint to easily enroll new clients into your coaching business up to 71 or 84% without having awkward conversations that ... Now some people ask me, hey, your text got cut off there. No, I did that intentionally. Right? I didn't finish that sentence because I wanted to create a cliffhanger, because remember, the point of the ad is to get the click. And so every element here is designed to have that person click the ad to click through to the next page, which is in fact going to cover whatever it is that we're trying to cover. Right? So element 9 here is a reiteration or a supporting benefit statement with a cliffhanger sentence that ends with a ... And then lastly, element number 10, this is where when you're setting up your ads, Facebook ads asks you what is the display URL that you want to include in there. Rather than actually just putting a URL in there, which kind of is useless to you, what I like to use that real estate for is the call to action. So I put in there then, click here to register to download your free copy. And again, it could be whatever it is to you, but I want to reiterate and reuse some of that real estate there, which I believe is some of the most underutilized real estate on an ad, which is that bottom display URL text, which you can turn into a call to action. So let me give you one other example with another ad here going through the entire thing, just so you could see it. In this case, we're offering a video. And in this case here, mom activated, a mom of 9, and this is a first yes getting question, again, to parents who have multiple kids, probably in the toddler phase, right? So the question is, want to know the one thing that I, a mom of 9, use to keep my act together, remove stress, and live a happy life? The answer is an obvious yes to that. Now watch the rapport, the feel, felt, found portion of this, right? Sometimes life feels like it's out of control as a parent, maybe even chaotic. I knew for me, trying to balance all the housework, kids, and other responsibilities often left me feeling a little on the downside because I felt like I was failing at it all. That is, until I discovered one simple but overlooked quote-unquote thing. Once I knew it and I applied it, our house and our life did a complete turnaround, way more peace and way more fun in our home. So you could see, feel, felt, found. Sometimes I feel like I'm out of control parent. I felt the same way too, like I felt like I was failing at it all. That is until I discovered this one thing, and as a result, everything flipped around. Again, we use the time sensitivity offer. This week, I'm giving away these free videos where I reveal exactly what that one thing is. Call to action. Click here to register and watch the videos with a scrambled URL. We got an image that tells a story, high contrast. We got a headline that says free video. Mom of 9 reveals the one thing she uses to keep it all together. Again, element number 9, supporting benefit statement with a cliffhanger sentence. I'm a reformed psycho mom, now loving life with 9 children. As a founder of Mom Activated, I am committed to helping other women find balance. So take a ... And on the bottom, click here to register now to watch the video. All right, so I hope you got all that. I want to open it up to a couple of questions. Anything related to some of this now that I can answer before we get into kind of our final Q&A and some of our other elements here. All right, so questions. What is the ideal amount of text to use in an ad body? To me, there is no ideal amount. You can tell that I write a lot of text versus not much text. And again, that's the reason for it, is because I want to create ads that don't necessarily look like ads, but look like people socially sharing things with each other. So you have kind of no limit. As long as you're using the Power Editor, you have no limit to the amount of text that you can use. One thing I would suggest, however, is if you do write too much text, rather than displaying it all, Facebook offers a little see more button or a link that they can click that opens up the rest of it. You probably want to avoid that for the most part. However, again, you do not have much that. Next question, do the cliffhanger with lead ads too? Yes, do the cliffhanger with any time you can use the cliffhanger. Remember, the point of the ad is to get the click, so anytime you can utilize that tool, that would be good. Someone's asking, what about Facebook call to action buttons? You can tell that I don't use them at all whatsoever. Again, because of the fundamental foundational principle that if I did, it would appear like it was an ad. And I do not want my ads to necessarily seem like ads, so 99% of the time I will not use a Facebook call to action button. However, that is not to say that you shouldn't split test it. Sometimes we have used it, but not all the time. Someone's asking, cliffhanger sentence was not affected by the clickbait rule. No, because you're not being intentionally douchey about it. You're actually giving a lot of value and a benefit statement there, and then you're naturally offering kind of a sentence that doesn't finish there. So you're not getting like, hey, you know, the traditional clickbait that's like, hey, the 10 things that this cat did on the toilet, number 9 was totally amazing, you should see it. Like, it's not like that. You're actually writing legitimate sentences. Do you only run clicks to website ads? The answer is no. These are all conversion-based ads. So that's why I do them, but sometimes they're click to website ads, so yes. What copyright issues are there when you're using an image with a celebrity like this one? You have to have permission, obviously, if you're going to use only the celebrity. That particular one was actually a screen grab from the template itself that had text overlay on top of it, so we were not trying to bait the celebrity, and we were not obviously focusing on Simon Cowell's audience in order to do that. It was simply a screen grab from one of the magnets itself. But again, I'm not a lawyer, nor do I pretend to be one on the internet, so you want to be very clear with any potential copyright issues. Wouldn't having long copy where we can implement all the elements of this, hold on, let me keep reading. I can't see the rest of that question for some reason. So someone will have to retype that out again. Why not a call to action button? I already alluded to that. Do you make shorter copy for mobile? That's a great question. Or just the same copy for desktop and mobile? No, most of the time we'll still offer longer copy. The only thing I'll do for mobile-based ads is take that CTA, the last line, and I will duplicate it right after the initial question. So if you see in the ad on your screen right there, want to know the one thing that a mom of 9 uses to keep my act together, remove stress, and live a happy life, after that question, I'd put the arrow and the scrambled URL if I was doing mobile only, just in case someone, based on the question itself, willing to kind of click on it. So I hope that makes sense. Where do you get the scrambled URL? I personally use bit.ly for that, bit.ly, but you can use any Google shortener, just Google URL shortener, and you can find them. And they're all basically the same. Do you find issues using the word you in Facebook ads? For the most part, no. But if you do call someone out and make them feel a ways about it, then potentially yes. So you do want to be careful with that. Any ideas of what we should not write in our ads? That's actually a great question. What you shouldn't write is calling anybody out for something specific. So you don't want to make people feel bad about themselves, so you or feel bad about their situation. So you can't call out pain, you can't call out body image stuff, you can't show images of body image stuff. Anything that would make someone feel bad is typically something that you don't want to show and or say in an ad. Someone's asking, if you're using a JV tracker on links for an affiliate link, is it possible to use bit.ly? The short answer is yes, but you'll want to double check that with obviously the vendor that you're using. Can you show examples of physical products, please? I can't right here, but I'd be happy to put something in our Facebook group that would have some physical products of ads we're using. If you'll remind me in our Facebook group, Facebook Mastery, I'll be happy to do that. If you have a video of a testimonial interview, or any video, how would you use that? It's the same sort of thing. So we have some video ads, and the video just replaces the image. So in that case, rather than using an image, you would use the video, but I'm using all the same copy formula the exact same way. Question says, is it better to create ads in the Power Editor or straight from the page? I always use the Power Editor, and I use unpublished posts, because if you do it straight from the page and you're doing split testing, that page will see like 10 or 11 different ads, and then we don't want to do that with just image variations. That's going to annoy your fans. So you want to do that. Do you ever point people do you ever point to other people in the field found formula? If you have authority to do so, you can. Specifically in a case study from a client, yes. Otherwise, you probably want to point to yourself if at all possible. Where do you see user feedback for my ads? That would be in the reporting section of your ad template. It's not the template, the ad reporting section manager, so you can do that. Where do you finish the cliffhanger sentence? In the freebie? No, so I do that right in the bottom portion. As you can see, element number 9 is where that's going to go, and you can cliffhanger that however you want, except just keep in mind you don't want to be like really clickbait about it. You want to actually offer a benefit in that statement, talk about the benefit of what someone's going to get, and then just not necessarily finish the sentence completely. Do you use this ad process for all products and services you promote? Yes, 100%. Physical products, services, consulting, lead magnets, it doesn't matter. I do that. Does negative feedback, can that harm the performance of the ad? The answer is yes, so you want to watch that. Are you able to optimize your conversions on ads for the lead? Yes, of course you can. So you want to be watching that, especially if you're split testing images. You want to optimize and keep only the ones that are working better. Ever test the opening question as a headline? Sometimes. We just found it hasn't worked as well. With the video question, I meant how do you make the thumbnail pop? With the video, you have the option to select a custom thumbnail. So you would just design the ad image the same way you would as if it were a standalone image, and you'd use that as your custom thumbnail. Power Editor versus Ad Espresso. I use Power Editor. I don't use any third-party tools, only because it doesn't let me structure the ads the way that I want them to. You mentioned making it in an unpublished post. Yeah, so when you're creating ads in the Power Editor, you are creating unpublished posts and not posts on your fan page wall. Do you have a similar guide to the landing page? Yes, but that's a whole webinar in and of itself. I have a 9-part strategy specifically for the landing page. If there's enough interest, we'll talk about that on another webinar. How do you scale your ads? That is a question that we covered on our scaling webinar, and that was a 2-hour webinar. So if you want, post that in the group and we'll talk about how you might be able to get access to that. How do you create connection if the page is the company, for example, instead of the personal brand? Great question. I'm going to suggest that your fan pages actually be individual, would be persons if you can. So Brendan Burchard is a great example of Brendan Burchard Live, Love, Matter. Although that's his brand, it's also kind of personalized because obviously people like to connect more with human beings than they do with brands. If, however, there's no way around that, then at least if you can, don't use the logo in the profile picture of the page. You'll want to create some sort of a personalized image if at all possible, but then in the copy you can in fact follow the feel, felt, found formula. Just remember you're using the voice of the company rather than the voice of the individual. I see a few questions coming in here. We'll get to that in just a second. Let me just end by letting you know a couple of things as well. And then we're gonna dive into some deeper Q&A and give you some more stuff that way. So again, what I've just revealed to you is actually one part of my 8-part contextual congruence methodology that is really being responsible for allowing us to have the highest ROIs in the industry. Now, how I'd like to kind of accommodate that is refer to kind of the iceberg analogy. Everybody knows that when you see an iceberg, you're only looking at 10% that is above the surface, and the real meat of it is everything that is below the surface. Anyways, I reveal my entire 8-stage contextual congruence formula at my Art of Lead Generation Implementation Intensive. This is a 2-day live in-person intensive. Look, I've got zero interest in teaching anybody just anything. I'm not, necessarily a big fan of just teaching because I realize that not everybody actually takes what's being taught and applies it into their business. So this is not designed to be a 2-day workshop where you just come and learn. It's actually designed to be a 2-day implementation experience where you don't leave with a to-do list, you actually leave with a done list. Now, if that's of interest to anybody on this call, information on that can be found at the URL that you see on your screen, nicholaskuzmich.com/intensive. You can take a look at the details there. Here's why I bring this up, because I got 5 spots left for my upcoming November 14th, 15th intensive. Look, you spent time and money to be on this webinar. And so if that's of interest to anybody on here, here's what I'm willing to do. The cost of the 2-day implementation intensive is $6,880. We have 5 spots left. I'm going to sell this out in the next week or two. But for anyone who wants to buy and participate and buys now during this Q&A, what I'm willing to do is knock off almost $2,000 off that. All right, so I'm going to knock off $1,880 off that price. You can join for just $5,000. Go to nixblog.com, top left there, /intensive. It'll take you to the order form, and then use the coupon code template for your $1,880 off. That's really all I want to say about that. There's 5 spots left. If anyone here is of interest, please do not share this link publicly. This is only for you because you're on this call, that I'm willing to do that for you. First come, first serve, 5 spots left. So let's get back to the Q&A. If you have any Q&A about anything that we covered just now, any of the samples, or about the intensive, I'm looking to answer those. And we'll just kind of dive right in, make sure everybody's questions are answered before I send y'all off to do your own thing. Cody asked, what percentage of your ad spend revenue comes from your cold ad, and what percentage comes from what I'm guessing is kind of warm and retargeted traffic? That's actually a great question. And the answer is they're kind of the same thing. So the cold ads are the ones that bring people into the funnel, and some of them are going to buy right away. The fast movers are going to go through the funnel and buy right away. And then the medium and slow movers are not, in fact, going to buy right away. And so those people will eventually be retargeted, and those people are going to buy at a later time. So the percentage of ad spend revenue is tricky when you're just thinking about, are they coming from cold versus warm or retargeted? They are one and the same thing. One's just faster moving, and one is slower moving, and you want to be incorporating both. Again, I have a whole teaching on retargeting, so we don't have time to necessarily dive into that. The goal here was to obviously reveal the 10 key elements of the perfect ad and for you to deploy that for cold traffic so that you could do some lead generation and customer acquisition following that. I see some more, same format for retargeting, Noah asked. The answer is not quite, because someone who's retargeted is someone who already knows you. And because they know you and they're familiar with you, you don't necessarily need to go through this entire start with a question, build some rapport. I like to use, this is kind of free of charge, great question, Noah. I like to use Dean Jackson's 9-word email format for it. I just call it kind of the 9-word ad, if you will. And it's basically the question that asks, are you still interested in blank? Right? And start with your ad that way. So let's say they kind of opted in at some point to see your template and they've opted in, or they haven't opted in. Maybe they just clicked on an ad and they didn't opt in. I could start a retargeting ad that basically says, hey, are you still interested in the blank template? If so, come get it today and click over here. So a slightly different approach for retargeting, only because they already know you. Another thing you can do in retargeting ads is use your image in there, because now they know who you are. Unlike with cold ads, most people don't know who you are, so your image won't nearly perform as well as some of the other stuff. Cody's asking, I guess the reason I asked that question is because, is it worth running cold? 100%. Yes, it is worth running cold all day long, but that shouldn't be the only thing you do. You want to mix cold and warm together. How do you optimize a campaign to make your ad reach more people cheaper? Really, it's a combination of everything that we talked about today. So if you have the right message in front of the right person at the right time, you are going to get higher interaction and engagement with your ads. And as you do that, you're going to start to get cheaper clicks and cheaper reach. So the idea here is you want to optimize your ad creatives and copy first, and then you can mess around with some of the bidding and some of the other things second. But again, the more your ad connects with your ideal prospect and person, the better the engagement, the more the engagement, and the cheaper that engagement is going to be. Hope that answers that. Next, when testing images and ad sets and ads, Keith, I think that was, you didn't finish that question. Keith, go ahead and finish that question. I think when testing images, ads, or assets, finish that question, I'll get that answer for you. Have you used page posts for lead magnets? I do, but the problem with page posts versus clicks to website or conversion ads is that you don't get the extra real estate. So if you do a page post ad, you're depending on the person to click on the very specific link that you put in your copy. When you do a clicks to website ad or a website conversion ad, the person can click anywhere on the ad and be taken through to the landing page. So I definitely will lean more towards clicks to website ads or website conversion ads. Let's see here. Same ads, so creating. How do you optimize when testing images? Okay. Will bid affect it? Yes, the bid will affect it to some degree. My general rule of thumb for bidding, although this is kind of the outside of the context of what we're talking about today, is 3 to 5x your goal CPA per ad set. Okay, 3 to 5x your goal CPA per ad set. So if your goal customer acquisition cost or your goal cost per lead, let's say, is ideally $5, then my daily bid for that particular ad set would be 20 to $25. And then you will adjust that accordingly. So I hope that makes sense. Do you test the name of the concept, the triage call method? Yes, we do to some degree, but we trust that once we've come up with a name, that it's a strong enough name that we're going to run with it. But again, I'm always a big fan of testing, and so if you find that one name works better than the other, then by all means, obviously, you want to go with the one that offers the better names. How many ads do you normally start off with when you're starting a campaign? Usually for each audience, we would do 2 ads to start with. We're split testing the same copy with 2 different images. We're seeing what a winner and a loser is. We're taking a control, and we're going to always add a variable against that control to see and ensure that we can get better results than that. So we are trying to do two, at least two for each audience, and then however many audiences you have in a particular campaign will result in how many ads that you have totally. Okay, do you teach a methodology for testing demographic and interest? Yeah, to a certain degree, but at the end of the day, I'm looking for influencers. So when I'm looking for an audience, here's essentially what I'm looking for. I'm looking for where do they hang out, who do they follow, what do they read, and what do they buy. If I know those things, I'm able to be much more specific in my targeting, and I'm going to start testing those demographics to see which one is performing better than the other. Somebody asked, do you use ads or ad sets? My general rule of thumb is one ad per ad set, and that's why we have tons of ad sets in our campaigns. Next question, Cody's asking, do you currently do better than do videos currently do better than images? I hear a lot of gurus telling people this. What I found, the answer is no, actually. Images do better than video most of the time. Now, if you have a killer video, obviously the video might work a little bit better, or if you're really good on video, then yes, possibly. But in general, we found static images actually outperforming videos right now. Someone's asking, do you send people to a landing page or use Facebook lead ads? I do both. Obviously, mobile is lead ad specific. But again, I like to send people to a landing page for the most part, A, because I can retarget them otherwise, and B, it's just another step in my process that I'm helping to pre-frame and qualify them for that actual sale. So I like landing pages, but if you're using lead ads, no worries, at least you're capturing the lead. Any advice for us? We get our accounts blocked all the time. I do have a blog post out there, how to prevent your ad account from being blocked. I'd encourage you to look at that blog post or ask the same question in our Facebook group, Facebook Marketing Mastery, because that I can answer and I can point you to the blog post, and that's going to give you all the information you need to make sure that that's in place properly. Do you ever use these types of ads, or do you go for more content or always an ad to a lead magnet? 99% of the time I'm using the ad formula template that I just shared with you here because it works. Now there are other times I might deviate from that a little bit, but 99% of the time I am using this specific formula, and just because, again, we've seen that it works over and over and over again. Any idea how to contact Facebook directly regarding stuff like that, blocked ad accounts? Yeah, they have a depending on if you have a rep or not, or if you have the live chat feature enabled for you. Some people do and some people don't. My advice is to go to the Facebook customer support page, submit a ticket. Sometimes it does take a while, and yes, it is a slow process, but that's the easiest way to reach Facebook right now. When you test, do you test the same audience? What about I think that's supposed to say double dipping. The answer is yes, I do test the same audience, because the same audience is going to respond differently to two different images, and you don't have to worry about double dipping right off the bat, because it's going to be really hard to compete against yourself in quite a large audience. So I do test against the same audience all the time until I find my absolute very top winner, and then we won't. But we're going to run at least 2 tests to each particular audience all day long. How long do you test the 2 variables? I test it until I have a definitive winner, which usually is within 24 to 36 hours. That will tell me which image excuse me, is working better, and that's what I'll do there. Have you tried to send ads people directly to a sales page? The answer is yes. We have. And depending on how well that sales page converts, yes, you can try that. Sometimes it's worked better, sometimes not so much better. So you just want to test that and see that. Which copy elements have you found to bring in the biggest impact? Honestly, I would just not break free from this formula that I revealed to you. It is literally created tens of millions, in fact hundreds of millions of dollars. It is what works. So those are the copy elements. I deploy them every single time, and I'd make that work. Someone asked, what is my daily budget? Like I told you, 3 to 5x my max CPA is what I'll set the daily budget to for that particular ad set. This isn't relevant to the webinar. Someone's asking, how does your organization, gosh, William, I can't read the rest of that question for whatever reason it gets cut off. Please ask me in the Facebook group and I'll make sure to get that answered. Nick, what do you consider to be a good click-through rate since high CTR leads to lower cost per rate? You know what, to be honest with you, I'm not watching click-through rates. I'm watching cost per leads or cost per acquisition. That's my ultimate number because oddly enough, sometimes my lowest click-through rates lead to my lowest cost per acquisitions, which is kind of odd, but it just means the ad is doing a really good job at qualifying. So I don't actually look at click-through rate. My main metric that I'm looking out for is my cost per acquisition, whether that's the cost per lead generated or the cost per customer acquired. Do you build out funnels or do you just run ads? If so, do you use ClickFunnels? My particular agency only runs ads. But obviously for our internal stuff, we build funnels. And yes, we use ClickFunnels and lead pages and a whole bunch of other stuff. So yes, we do all that. What I mean, Noah's asking is, do you ever run ad to a blog post versus an opt-in? Great question, Noah. And the answer is yes. Oftentimes we do run to some content pieces first and then retarget them that way, depending on the point of the ad. We found that for straight up lead generation, going straight to an opt-in page is better. I go into far more depth at my intensive about that. But also for positioning and for pre-framing people, we send people to content first. What is the ideal audience size? Someone has asked. I don't have an ideal audience size. Obviously, the bigger the better because then you can scale those campaigns. But I've made audience sizes of 5,000 or less work and turn into sales for me. So I don't really care what the size of the audience is. If my ideal customer or client is in there, I'm going to find them and reach them. Cody says, I'd be interested in more of these webinars, maybe retargeting and landing pages. Awesome. I will make sure to get that in the calendar and do a couple more of those, specifically around retargeting and around landing pages. How large of a target audience do you recommend people start out for? I answered that question. Hopefully you got that answer, William. Next one, does your organization ever do internships? William, not specifically because honestly I'm super, super busy. We don't even take on very many private clients. We're limited and I'm very picky about that, but it may be something that I might consider. We definitely are building in a certification program, but that wouldn't be an internship. How about pixel wrong data? I don't know what pixel wrong data means, so if you want to re-ask that question, that would be ideal. Let's look at the time. We're on the 90-minute mark. Gosh, time flies. Are there any last questions? I'm gonna shut this down shortly, but I do want to make sure that everyone's questions get answered. So if anyone has any questions, please ask them away, and I will make sure that I get them answered here. Someone asked, as a newbie, what is a good starting testing budget? Should we plan on spending? Joey, here's the answer. Spend whatever you're comfortable spending on, and just make sure that your daily budget per ad set that you set up is 3 to 5 times your max cost per acquisition kind of threshold. So by that, what I mean is this. If I'm looking to generate a lead for $5, my daily budget for that particular ad campaign or that ad set will be $20. Now, depending on what my budget is, I can do, 3 of those ad sets. Let's say if I want to spend $60 that day. If I want to spend $150 that day, I'll spend a little bit more. But do whatever you're comfortable with while still giving you enough room to get some really good data when you run it. Let's see. When you set up your ad sets with audience targeting, do you set up 1 interest per ad set? Douglas, the answer is absolutely. My general rule of thumb is 1 ad per ad set 100% of the time. I would never break that rule, so the short answer is that yes. Let's see, question around the conversion showed on Facebook does not match with my real conversions. Yes, you'd probably want to use third-party software for that. We internally like to use a tool called Wicked Reports, but you could use any third-party software that's going to help you with that. So just keep that in mind. Do you do anything unique with lookalike audiences? I don't know what unique would be. The main purpose we use lookalike audiences as a filtering on top of large, broad audiences if our acquisition costs are not within the number that we're happy with. So what I mean by that is, let's say we're going after a really large, broad audience. and we're not getting the CPAs that we're happy with, then we will create a lookalike audience that we will filter on top of that broad audience, which will give us that ability to get a little more honed in. That's kind of our main use for lookalikes. Other than that, not really. How do you price your clients? Our client fee is $10,000 a month retainer, or 10% of ad spend, whatever is higher. So if you're spending more than $100,000 a month on ad spend, then it's, you know, 10,000 bucks or more. If it's less than that, it's a $10,000 retainer that we charge for our fees. But we're not taking on any clients right now, just so you know. We are full, so that's good. Would love some examples related to physical products that follow this formula. John, great question. Ask that in the Facebook group. For the sake of time, I will post a couple of those in there. That's going to show you a bit of examples of what we do with that. Question, we have a new ads account. Should we start slowly with the budget? The answer is yes. Season the account cautiously before you start going bonkers with things. Why not have a bigger budget? Why 3 to 5x? 3 to 5x is only for the first 24 or 36 hours to test the viability of that ad. Once we have a winner, we'll scale that up drastically. But just to start, if you start with any more than that, Michael, you'll notice that you could lose your shirt in the process, and we don't want you to do that. Do you cover physical products using the formula at all in the intensive? Yes, often, and a lot of people are using physical products. We get much more in depth on how to sell that physical product. Ideally, most people are there because they're consultants or they're selling some sort of information product, mastermind, or anything like that, but we do touch upon some physical products, yes. If I want $100 budget on a $5 CPA, is that okay? Why limit it to 25? Again, as I mentioned, just because it allows you not to lose your shirt. Best tip for not being banned. We have read your blog post. Be cool on Facebook. That's the best tip. If you start getting up in people's faces and start promoting stuff or be sleazy with your marketing, that is typically what is going to get you banned. So you don't want to do any of that. Do your ads generally work for the first time? Yes and no. With this formula, we generally see the ads work, yes, but yes, we are constantly split testing over and over and over and over again to make our results even better. William says, thanks for your time. Have a most excellent day. I appreciate it, William. Thanks for being here today. Make sure you go and deploy and let me know. By the way, can I ask for a big favor here? If you're a friend of mine on Facebook, can you post on my wall just letting me know what you thought about this training? Obviously, we want other people know the next time we do a training like this what they thought about this specific ad formula template. So if you're a friend of mine, please post that on my wall. Be as specific as possible about how much you enjoyed it or what you learned from it or your greatest takeaway. If we're not, join our Facebook Mastery group and post in there. Just want to let you know that if you post a great endorsement or a great thing like that, we may use it in future promotions, so just kind of keep that in mind. But if you did enjoy this training and are getting some results with it, please post on either my personal Facebook wall right now. That would be totally appreciated, or in our Facebook Mastery group. That would be awesome as well. Would you share us your client enrollment form? Unfortunately, I can't do that. That's proprietary just for our clients, so I can't. I'm sorry. Have you ever given up on a particular market? Look, if the numbers don't work, no matter how hard we try, the answer is yes. Sometimes we do have to do that. Someone says, this was excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. Another person says, there seems to be an e-commerce theme out for selling a product straight. Yes, I use this formula for selling products. I'll show you examples of that. In fact, we're doing a live product launch right now as we speak, in fact, which isn't lead generation. It's half lead gen, half directed product, but we use this formula all day long. That looks like it's all the questions. Great webinar, someone says. Thanks, man. You have too many friends. You can't be at a personal friend, but I still love you. Thanks, Karen, no problem. But if you still can post on the wall by following me, that would be awesome, or in the Facebook group, that would be awesome as well. Any other questions as we kind of wrap things up here? Looking forward to that great webinar. Thanks I appreciate that. If there are any follow-up questions about anything I didn't particularly address, please feel free to mention that in the Facebook group. I will dive in there and do my best to answer those questions as well. Awesome webinar. Thanks so much, Karen. I appreciate it. Thank you. Please do not just take the information and not deploy it in your business. I would love to make sure you deploy this in your business. That would mean the world to me to see you do that. It would be great. And so please go ahead, deploy it. Tell me how you do with the results. I love hearing that. Thank you. People say, have you ever used this for a local business? I have, in fact. Someone's asking me, how's fatherhood? Douglas, awesome. Thank you so much for asking. I appreciate it. It is awesome. Do you have, let's see, okay. Looks like we covered it all. So everybody, thank you so much for spending the last 90 minutes with me. I trust you enjoyed yourself as much as I enjoyed myself being here, providing this content for you. Please, whatever you do, take the information, go and deploy it in your business. It is of absolute utmost importance to me that you go deploy this in your business. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for spending the time. Please, if you have any further follow-up questions, ask them in the Facebook group. And if you don't mind, please go ahead and post on my wall or in the Facebook group any great takeaways or endorsements or anything from this webinar. It would mean the world to me. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much. And I'll catch you again on the next training or the next webinar. Have an amazing